3. Hey, everybody. Jay Niblick here again with Bryan Arzani. Say, hey, Bryan.
What's up, Jay? Hey, everybody.
Happy Monday. Today, we're going to talk about how to use anything from a personality assessment to what we'll be looking at today called the organizational health check to sell, how to get business using these tools. That's what we specialize in. That's what we help our consultants do. Before we get started, we want to make sure you guys, if you've got questions, we're getting them from the 1,600 or so consultants around the world. Those feed into us, but we want your questions. So even if you're not an Intermetrics consultant right now, if you got questions about how to run a business, consulting practice, how to make it profitable, sales, referrals, you name it, send them to us at questions@intermetrics.com. Again, it's questions@intermetrics.com. And to make sure that you get more of this stuff and this educational content, like us or follow us over at Intermetrics North America on Facebook and LinkedIn. And subscribe right here, so we'll notify you when the next video comes out, and we'll email you a link, and you can learn what others are asking, even if you don't ask your own questions. So, Bryan, how long do we take to give these calls?
Well, you know what, Jay? Here's the deal. We have folks come to us all the time and say, why am I struggling? Why is my solopreneurship struggling? And we ask them, outline what you do in the course of a day. And a lot of them will show us that they've got like blocks of time on their calendar there, sometimes an hour, sometimes 2 hours. Sometimes they're pouring into themselves all this stuff. And it's like, dude, we didn't take us 5 minutes to go, here, you got a problem. Because you're pouring more in than you're pouring out. So if you got more than 20 minutes, because we do 20 minutes, 2-0. If you got more than 20 minutes to hop on and fill your cup for the day, if you got more than 20 minutes, that's your biggest problem. You got to go out and be in front of people. This is a contact sport, belly to belly or phone to phone or web to web.
Dude, it's so I've already started the timer because like Bryan said to me one time when we started doing these 20 to profitability kind of talks, if you got more than 20 minutes, I can already tell you why you're probably not making enough money. Too much in your head. Today's topic, let's use the organizational health checkup. That's a profile that we've developed here at Intermetrics that is designed to help you identify like the true cause of the problem, the real pain in the organization. I'm going to pull one up, Bryan, and just real quickly, I'll do a high level overview of what it is. And then kind of you can walk through uses and examples of it. The key is, how do I use things that we can provide you that are part of being an Intermetrics consultant to go get more business? Not tools in a bag that you sell once you get the business. The biggest value to making a profitable practice, that's what we focus on, helping you guys develop a profitable consulting practice, is actually going out and getting the clients. So this is a device called the Organizational Health Checkup. And what it does is looks at these 11 areas of effectiveness in the organization. Not going to drill into the nitty gritty. We don't have enough time. But what this allows you to do is go to an organization and say, hey, what's the issue here? You've got this overall problem. We know that the thing that we always say is he or she who identifies the cause of the problem gets to fix it. So instead of selling your solutions, go out and solve. Find a person with a problem, identify the cause of that problem. We teach you how, and using psychometrics and tools like this. And then you go ahead and get that business. This allows them to look at these 11 dimensions of health. Now, this is customizable. So you can go in and say,
wait, Jay, wait a second. Say that again. I mean, that right there is so freaking mind-blowing. Say those words again. It is what?
This is customizable.
Holy okay, I'm sorry.
All of ours, most of our stuff is. So if you want to go out and look, here's what it looks like. This is what's done. You get a link, you send it out to, let's say, the 5 C-level people in the organization, right? This isn't for 360s for 100 or 1,000 people. It's only good for up to 10 individuals because you're only wanting to work with the very top people in the organization. So it may be one person who's the owner. It might be top 2 or 3 or 4 people, but they each take their own link and they're answering questions like this, with regards to my personal life or employee alignment. Our training programs ensure that employees have the knowledge and skills they need to succeed. And each of these 3 individuals is ranking that on a 0 to 5 scale. 5 being absolutely, we nail it. 1 being, man, we suck at that. So you can plot what all of these individuals scored here, and you sit back around, and Bryan will take over when I shut up here in a second. But customizable meaning either I don't want this entire category, and so I can get rid of it, or let's say let's say I don't want to deal with teams. That's not something that I consult to, or I don't do leadership, or I don't do strategic planning. I don't want to help them identify a problem that I'm not interested in fixing. So you might go in and say, let's just drop this entire category. You could drop all of them and create your own brand new category that you have the pillars of excellence, the 7 pillars of excellence. That's what you as a consultant espouse. This is what you ought to be looking for. You can put pillar number 2 and write these actual questions. You can write these questions that they're going to rank on a 1 through 5 scale. So that's the flexibility. It all happens right here. I'll shut up and let Bryan take over on how do I use this to actually get business and make sure that I'm showing my value up front, Bryan?
Well, here's a couple of cool things. Okay, here's the deal. So my biggest frustration when I was on your side of the coin, when I was buying or trying to go out and grow my business, the people that I worked with and I partnered with and I would buy their stuff, they could never really truly relate to me because they'd never walked 10 miles on my moccasins. And so they'd give me great ideas that did not work and they fell flat on their face. And so here's what I'll tell you. I'm out every day in the trenches helping our consultants either get business or we're driving it. And so I'm going to tell you right now, this is the most powerful instrument to do what we talk about in the Profitable Consultant, which is the person who identifies the problem earns the right to fix it. And so what we do, a lot of times we have consultants that come to us and they say, man, how do I get to that C level? I do a great job of working with a manager or a human resource professional, but how do I get to that C-suite? How do I get into that officer level of individuals? This instrument right here will fast track you to the top because here's what this is. This doesn't allow you to go down, like Jay said, and just ask, 5,000 people. We're looking for people who have a paradigm or perspective of view into the organization or a team. And so when we talk about it, I've memorized this. It's 11 key areas of performance and profitability. And I'm going to give you some application and some scenarios that can allow you to see how this instrument is a complete deal changer and deal maker. So 8 years ago, when Intermetrics was kind of throwing this out there, we went out to, and I wasn't the CEO, I wasn't the president of Intermetrics. I was just a client of Intermetrics. And what I would do is I said, Jay, this is cool. Let me see what I can do. I went to 10 of my clients and I said, look, I'm considering taking on an instrument that measures an organization's effectiveness in 11 key areas of performance, profitability, personal talent, alignment, succession planning, all these things. And I said, what I'd like you to do is give me your opinion of this instrument and tell me at the end, what do you think the value on the market would be if I were to bring this into my practice? And they said, okay. And I said, no, by the way, would you help me cover my cost on it? My hard cost to work with this firm is $700. So would you cover my cost? And they said, sure. So I actually had 5 takers that said, yes, we'd like to do it. And I actually picked 3 clients that were kind of not really doing much with us anymore because we know as solopreneurs, right, we have maybe 1 or 2 tricks in the bag and then they run their course. What happened was these guys went back in, they took it, they came back and they said, we want the information. We want the information. And what happened was we were able to have a strategic conversation about their organization in those 11 key areas. And here's what I'll tell you too, Jay. This is what's interesting. It's wild. Sometimes there's parts in those categories that I don't cover, but what we really want our CICs to be able to be as a trusted advisor. And so some of them do say, you know what, I don't want to talk about something I can't do. Others who kind of buy into what Jay and I talk about, which is this abundance mentality, we tell them, look, you know what, this is kind of like an engineering design, development set of drawings, and you might want to engage us to help you build this idea of what you want to do with regards to talent or your organization, or you might want to leverage somebody else. And if you'd like to leverage somebody else, you can enlist us to do it and maybe for a fee do it, or you know what, we can transition the way. But here's what some of the things that it does is, and Jay, if you want to talk, you raise your hand because, dude, I'm telling you right now, I am.
Yeah, no. The big 2 things to keep it kind of so we have structure that you guys can go back and remember is expansion and epiphany. Just remember expansion and epiphany. Those are the big buckets that we're talking about. To Bryan's point, real quick, I'll just kind of show it one more time. I'm with him. I'm 100% with him. Look, here's the 11 areas. Now, if you are somebody who could work with coaching for a person, if you can help with helping them do better by their personnel and their team effectiveness and their leadership, but you don't do sales and marketing and you don't do strategic planning, you can either A, remove those and make your own version that's, Jay's organizational health checkup. You can actually change the title to, Jay's or business perfection model, whatever you want to type in there, you can do. That's okay. And we won't tell you that's wrong. I think the more successful ones leave all 11 in or create even more and have partners. His abundance comment should not be unheard. Have partners. So you still go in and say, well, if the problem here is in strategy and planning, that's where the big deficit is, because, we get down here and we go strategy and planning. Where is it? Is, not a 4.1 on a 5 scale, but it's way down here. And there's this big pie piece missing. Obviously, guys, here's the big problem that we need to talk about first. Well, I have a guy that's one of my partners. All he does is strategic planning. He's the expert. He's not part of my organization, but you don't have to say that. You can expand it and open it out. So expansion and epiphanies. Number one, expansion. If I'm talking to one person, it's kind of difficult to say, I would love to talk to the rest of your executive team, because why? Well, their time's valuable. Well, for me, the more of them I'm influencing and exposed to, the more likely I get the business. But that's never usually their concern. They're not like, well, yeah, I'd let you talk to all these other guys. It's difficult. If I say I want to have as many people in charge of this as possible understand and take part of this health check process, then there's a legitimate and a defensible reason to expand my influence in the organization from the one person I'm talking to the executive team.
Well, and here's what it does, Jay.
So there's where we're talking about there. Go ahead.
Yeah, and here's a real case scenario. We had a client come to me and said, "Hey, we want to work on strategic planning, and we'd like to invite you to be a part of that." And here's the question: how did you determine that strategic planning was something you should work on? And here's what they told us: we find that we're very pragmatic with our officer group. We work on the things in front of us, but we fail to see things in the future. I said, "Okay, but how did you determine that's the most important thing we should work on?" And they said, "Well, it's just something that we've decided." I said, "Okay, cool. So where are you at in the process?" They said, "We've already retained," and this was the truth, they've already retained a company that could do it, but this person's going to facilitate a consensus building meeting with all of the officers. And I said, "Okay, so how much was that?" They said, "It's $15,000. I said, "You're going to pay 15 grand for someone to come in and bring everybody to consensus." And they said, "Yep." And I said, "How about I do this? Can I send you our organizational health checkup? And what it's going to do, it's going to give 11 of you officers the opportunity to look at your organization in these lenses." They said, "Okay." And I said, "And here's what's going to happen. I'm going to give you this document. It's going to have everybody. And here's what I need to do. I've got to meet with each one of you one-on-one for 30 minutes. And then over the course of the time, then I'll come back and I'll give you back kind of your deliverable or your roadmap on where you all agree the prioritization of importance, investment, kind of like that epiphany thing Jay's talking about." And here's what happened. They went through the process. We took their data, gave them their data, and then they were able to see where they all agreed because they couldn't come to consensus because they're on planes all over the world. And then what happened was because I said, as part of the process, I got to get 30 minutes in front of every officer. It's part of the process. They said, "Okay." Now, all of a sudden, I got 3 of the officers who were the biggest naysayers. They came in and said, "Hey, that other organization that we retained, to heck with them. We're doing it with this guy." And it was because of the OHC.
We talk about being a diagnostician, a business diagnostician. You have to think like the physician. A lot of times people walk into a doctor's office and say, "I need a prescription for some antibiotics." The problem is because they've got, pancreatitis. The problem is because they have a virus. The problem is they have something else that an antibiotic is not going to work because they misdiagnosed them.
Hey, Jay, real quick. If you get a Z-Pack from your doc, this is a true story. My doc told me this. If you get a Z-Pack from your doc, it's because your doc doesn't think you're really sick, but you're just pissing and moaning enough to need a prescription. So, hey, there you go. True story.
Steroids make everything feel better. So sometimes that's, a solution or not. It depends on if it comes in conjunction with anything else. But the thing is this: if that person shows up in the physician's office and says, "I've already self-diagnosed, here's what I need," no physician's ever going to say, "Okay." They're going to say, "I'm the expert, let me decide." Right. The expansion piece helps you have reasons to talk to other individuals. All 9 of these here, this example is only showing 3, but all of those individuals are going to have their own link that allows them to spend 15, 20 minutes on their own in isolation from the others, passing down their own opinion. The epiphany part comes itself in 2 forms. The epiphany is either, to Brian's example, well, we thought strategy and planning was where we self-diagnosed our problem, but if you're in the problem, you're normally not able to self-diagnose accurately. Right. Otherwise, you shouldn't probably have the problem. It's so common that corporations misdiagnose themselves. And this is the very first stage. Now, Brian was talking about a time when he would say, help me cover the cost. This is included in your unlimited plan now, so there's no additional cost. You can give this away to the individual to get all 8, 3, 6, 12, whatever people doing it. And then you come back, the epiphany is, hey, wait, we all collectively agree we're strong in strategy and planning. It's culture where we have this, oh my God, we realize this is where we think. By going through a process of carefully breaking down a series of questions that have been carefully crafted to help each identify the problem, we can see the big picture of, why are we spending $15,000 on strategy and planning when in isolation, objectively, our opinion is we really need help with culture. And the second epiphany is everybody either all agrees something's great or something sucks. What I love is the discrepancy epiphany. So and these two happen to be JD, but let's say John Davis thinks that, where's an even better one? John Davis thinks our training programs suck, and Jason Dukakis thinks that they're damn great. This is like a B+ or an A-. So it's a real blast to get into a room with people that either all go, yeah, everything's really good, everything's really bad. They all kind of agree. But the even better part is when you get two,
scroll back down real quick.
You're going, real quick, you're sitting there going, why do you think this sucks? And why do you think this is the highest score possible? Let's talk. And the epiphany is you're the only non-employee in the room who's sitting there when they have this revelation and go, man, we need help with this.
Well, and go back up to there real quick on the personal side. So just this will connect real quick for a lot of you that understand our instruments. So on our attribute index piece, the self-direction. So look at that one there. I get a strong sense of accomplishment for my work. All three of these senior executives are 1, 1, 2. Here's what's so cool, and I know we're getting close to our end. One of the things that's lacking today in development, we hear it all. I've heard it for 20 years. We can't measure. We don't have any statistical data. We can put our finger in our mouth and see, do people like it? Do they love it? Do they feel good? Here's the deal. We use the organizational health check to bookend our development. And second thing, we give annual reviews of progress and prioritization for the year to come. Now, when you look at personal, right, on that personal piece, I don't get any sense of accomplishment. We also measure that on our attribute index on self-direction, role awareness, where we start to see, do they actually see where they're going? So we can start to take our instruments and form a web that starts to show, look, here's statistical data that shows we are moving the needle. We'd like to see that next year, maybe go to a 2. And through whatever, if it doesn't matter what coaching process you're using, you can literally start to go, you know what, we've gone from a 1.6 on average to a 2.5. And they know that, you know what, this is a 3-year-long program that's going to require intentional effort so that our senior level executives, and that's just to use that data. But bookending your developments. We have so much success in being able to say we can statistically tie progress to data that allows you then to justify when you're budgeting, and it gives you a whole different place to play versus saying, hey, do you like me? Right? Maybe they're using another development firm that they're tied into, but you have this statistical data to say, hey, you know what? Maybe I can't be your development person today, but I can give you statistical tools that take subjectivity and make it objective.
Or ROI stuff. People are always like, where's the ROI? Look, when I wrote the organizational health check, it was for existing consultants. I saw too many of them jumping in and doing the same thing wrong, making the same mistake. They liked to sell sales training. They liked to do leadership development. So as a carpenter with a hammer, all the problems they saw in the organization looked like nails. They're like, shit, there's a nail, hit it,
Right.
Because that's what they really specialized in. Or every malaise of the problem of the organization was really due to lack of strategic planning, because that's what they specialized in. It's all due to coaching, because that's what when you get these rose-colored glasses on, everything looks like, well, my solution would probably fit that way. So it's a limiting.
But I got to feed my kids. I'm going to take that deal.
Of course. And so we teach that, but so we saw a lack of efficacious application of the profiles to the problem. It wasn't intentionally self-serving with malice. It was just, I like this part of the organization. I think it's that important. So I'm going to tend to skew my view of the problem towards this, crap. All right. Well, you got 20 minutes. Time to go sell some shit. Talk to you next time. Bye.
Hey, like, subscribe, Click it. There's more to come, baby. Peace.
All right.